Special forces often work deep behind enemy lines. Their missions are secret. Their weapons, top of the line. And if all hell breaks loose, the sidearm is their last line of defense.
Spec-Ops handguns are lightweight, deadly accurate, and loaded with stopping power. Now we're launching missions of our own to see what these weapons can do. Plus, we're checking out the history of handgun technology to see the advances that make today's pistols a reality.
This is a Spec-Ops handgun, a weapon that changed the world.
Firepower. Nothing shaped military capability more. I'm Wil Willis, former Army Ranger and Air Force pararescueman. I've trained with modern weapons until firing them is second nature. Now I'm teaming up with leading experts to examine the greatest military firearms of all time and discover how these weapons change the world. This is the preferred handgun for many U.S. Navy SEAL teams. It's the Mark 25, better known as the Sig Sauer P226. It fires a classic 9mm parabellum round out of a 15-round magazine that loads like this. Now, I'm ready to take this baby for a test drive. If you know anything about Navy SEALs, you know that their weapons need to be water resistant. What we're gonna do is we're gonna test that out right now. Weapon's hot. So as advertised, this weapon fully submerged in that tank. I pulled it out. I fired about 10 rounds through it. It worked perfectly. There were no malfunctions, no hang-ups. It's got this stippling on the grip right here that helps you hang on if it is wet. Performance of the weapon system was spot on. The P226 joins a select list of Special Operations, or Spec-Ops, handguns. It begins with Colt's M1911, the U.S. military standard for nearly a century. World War II operatives with America's intelligence agency, the OSS, carry the M1911 on missions deep in enemy territory. These elite units are the forerunners of today's Special Operations Forces. Armed only with what they can carry, they sabotage rail lines, collect intel, and ambush German soldiers. With its .45 caliber rounds, the M1911 gives these early Spec Ops teams the edge in close quarters combat. Today, the legendary M1911 has been replaced by Spec Ops pistols like Sig Sauer's P226. Former Navy SEAL Joel Lambert knows this pistol firsthand. During his 10 years in SEAL Teams 2 and 4, Joel saw combat in places like Kosovo and Afghanistan. His pistol leash ensures that the P226 is always by his side.
P226, it's a fantastic pistol. I've used it on all kinds of missions and all kinds of conditions, and it's always performed flawlessly.
Now, you're carrying the SIG P226.
Sure.
What do you like about that weapon?
Well, it's a lightweight gun, less than 2 pounds, so it's easy to roll around on your hip. And the magazine capacity, got 15 rounds in the magazine, plus 1 in the pipe, so for your initial pull, that's a lot of rounds to be carrying down range.
And personally, what do you think your max effective range is with that?
For this pistol, it's about 160 feet, but really, when you're going to your pistol, as you know, you're gonna be at a lot closer range than that, generally.
Yeah. And what about trigger action?
Some of them are single action, double action. Some of them are double action only.
Okay, so what do we say we go check out some of that action?
We set up 2 sheets of shatter-resistant glass for our pistol action demo.
This is the 40 cal P229 used by NCIS. It's double action only. That is, every trigger pull completes 2 actions. First, the trigger cocks the hammer. Then, it fires the round. That's action number 2. Double action.
Nice. This is also a P229, but this one is chambered in the .357 SIG caliber. This is carried by the Secret Service. It's double action and single action, and that first round is going to be double action. But the energy from the recoil of this weapon system cocks this hammer back, and every successive round is going to be single action. There you go. Double action and single action,
Right on.
all with the same pistol.
Right.
Now, in your opinion, why is it beneficial to have double action on your pistol?
Well, a double action only pistol is mainly for safety reasons. Well, I mean, the hammer has to be cocked by the trigger pull and then released by the trigger pull so that you can't stick it back in your holster with the hammer back. It gives the shooter more control over the weapon.
In my opinion, that double action slows a shooter down just enough that he can more deliberately assess and engage a target appropriately. Whether single or double action, all Spec-Ops pistols share one purpose: neutralize the enemy. But there's even debate about how to do that. Now, Joel, you know as well as I do, in the special operations community, there's a huge argument about the difference between lethality and stopping power.
Absolutely. And stopping power, we're talking about slow, heavy rounds that transfer that energy into the target. And as far as lethality goes, smaller, faster rounds can cause death, but they're not going to cause it right away.
Now, we'll never settle the debate about which is better, but what we can do is demonstrate the capability of a couple of these different cartridges.
Sounds good.
All right, let's do it.
All right.
Okay, Joel. Both of these pistols are carried by Special Operations Forces. You've got the P229 chambered in the .40 caliber. I've got the P228 9mm. What I want to know is which caliber round has better stopping power. Each of us will fire at one of these slatted boxes to see if either round causes more damage. Joel, you're up first with the .40 cal SIG 229. All right, let's see what happens.
All right.
Joel's .40 cal ripped through the box. All right, so let's see what this 9mm
See what
does.
you got.
Let's go down and check it out.
Yeah, let's do.
Both rounds went through all their slats, but the amount of destruction will show us which round has more stopping power. You can see there's a relatively small entrance wound on this lat, okay? And then you get the transfer of energy, obviously the splintering on the back side. And splintering is something that you'd see in bone as well. Bone doesn't have the ability to expand. And then, of course, on the back side, you can see that this, I mean, it just totally forced its way through that last piece. We move around to this 9mm. 9mm is the most common Spec-Ops pistol ammo. It's readily available around the world, and its small size means a lot of them can be carried. But small does have some disadvantages. Now, check these out. And when you talk about stopping power, this is what you want. You want that
Exactly.
rapid expansion of that round. You want that good energy transfer.
Exactly. Heavy and slow.
Exactly. The smaller round zips straight through the box. If this target was an enemy soldier, the shot might eventually be lethal, but it may not stop his attack. The bigger round transfers almost all its energy into the target. That's stopping power. So little energy is left in the slug that the final slat deflects it upwards. Very cool. Let's go shoot something else.
All about it.
I know that some of the SEAL teams are running with the P226,
Sure.
but other special operations teams are using other pistols.
Well, we've got the SIG P229s. We've got the M11s. We've got the Glock 17, all different calibers, depends on the teams.
Most Spec-Ops teams carry pistols chambered for 9mm ammunition. Operatives on a mission can carry numerous rounds without adding much weight. And as an added bonus, they can restock nearly anywhere on the planet. But not all rounds of the same caliber have equal stopping power. What a lot of people don't understand is that the shape of that round also has a tremendous effect.
True. A typical pointed round often travels through a target, so it doesn't release all of its energy. A hollow point slug expands inside a target. That large, flat shape of the round more easily transfers its energy to the target, and it also tears a larger cavity.
Well, I've got the perfect thing for demonstrating that.
You got it.
Discover the past with exclusive military history documentaries and ad-free podcasts presented by world-renowned historians, all on History Hit. Watch them on your smart TV or on the go with your mobile device. Download the app now to watch everything, from the gripping story of the Band of Brothers to Operation Barbarossa and D-Day. Immerse yourself in the dramatic stories of this remarkable era by signing up via the link in the description.
We're using watermelons because the rind will hold its shape for us to examine, even after the round has blasted out the flesh. Here's how we'll set it up. Joel, you'll load standard 9mm ammunition in the Navy SEAL's P226. I'm gonna use the P228 that's carried by some military investigation units. I'm gonna load 9mm hollow point. So with the standard 9mm round, you've got a relatively small entrance right here. But as that round moves through and its energy, that kinetic energy, is passed into this meat, all this meat gets pushed out of the way and it has to go someplace. So it expands outward. And all that kinetic energy, of course, ruptures the backside of this thing, tears away all that rind and creates even more damage. So you can move over to this one with our expanding ammunition.
A little bit more.
Yeah, it's terrible.
It's ugly.
As that round changes shape, gets flat on the nose, which means more surface area of that round in contact with more of the tissue of the watermelon, so you get a greater distribution of energy. And again, you got the expansion, and then, of course, the rind can't hold it all in, and it just explodes.
Gotta go someplace.
Yeah. Hollow point ammo can be used by some domestic Spec-Ops units, but its use in combat is banned by treaty. On the battlefield, firepower can be boosted with pistols chambered for a bigger caliber. These sidearms hold fewer rounds and aren't easily concealed, a trade-off some units are willing to make. The Mark 23 is the first .45 caliber pistol adopted by U.S. Special Forces since the M1911. It first came into service in 1996 after some of the toughest military testing in history. It survived being submerged in seawater, dropped, frozen, and fired over 30,000 times. And I'm gonna fire it with this suppressor. The Mark 23 is reliable, it's definitely accurate. It's got one problem. It is huge. This pistol is nearly 2 inches longer than the SIG P226. With a suppressor, the Mark 23 is nearly 1.5 feet long. But now, a new Spec-Ops sidearm finally combines big caliber and small profile. Jeff Reeves served with the Navy SEALs for more than 9 years in multiple hotspots around the world. He's firing a .45 caliber sidearm that some naval special operators are adding to their arsenal.
The H&K 45 compact tactical pistol is a great handgun. It felt great inside my hand, and I was actually surprised that the kickback wasn't more than what it was. This here is the H&K 45 compact tactical. Navy SEALs are just now beginning to carry this in the field.
And it fires the classic .45 ACP round.
Just like its predecessor, yes, except it has a 10-round magazine, and that is unusual considering the size of the round.
And I also noticed it has a threaded barrel.
just for a suppressor like before, which we have right here. This is what we can thread onto the end of the gun, and depending upon the mission, it will dictate if we take that into the field or not.
There's the school of thought out there that says that once you put a suppressor onto a weapon system, it reduces that weapon system's stopping power.
I have heard of this, yes.
Well, I have a test that should answer that question. Are you up for it?
I am. This will be good.
All right, let's grab our stuff and head out. Okay, Jeff, here's the test we've got set up. We've got identical H&K 45 compact tacticals.
Okay.
The only difference is I have a suppressor on the end of mine. Now, we have rolling targets on tracks. So as we engage...
If any of the bullet's kinetic energy is absorbed in the suppressor, your target's not going to move as fast or as far as mine will.
Exactly. We'll both fire 10 rounds.
Okay. This will be good.
This test will show us whether a suppressor compromises firepower. Engage. The impact of the rounds forces both wheeled targets down the track. It's looking pretty tight.
There's not much difference at all with the suppressor on there.
Yeah, I would say, if anything, you're slightly ahead, farther back from me, but it's negligible.
I agree. I mean, it could be the friction of the wheels and the tracks or whatever, but I would say that these weapon systems are pretty much the same.
Yeah, cool.
These are good weapons.
Modern-day special ops pistols like the P226 carry multiple rounds in easy-to-load magazines. They're compact, they're reliable, and they're deadly accurate. But it's taken almost 500 years to get here. At least as far back as the 1500s, gunsmiths were building spectacularly impractical repeat-fire handguns. It isn't until the 1800s that the idea is finally realized. To learn more about this historic advance, I've dropped by the National Firearms Museum, home to one of the finest gun collections in the world. Museum Director Jim Sapika is unlocking the cases of some historic pistols, including one from the genius who solved the riddle of repeat fire.
Sam Colt was the guy to really get it down, and he did it with a rotating cylinder that had successive charges.
Colt's breakthrough handgun is the 1836 Patterson. It launches a 20-year run of ever-improving models.
I bet you recognize that.
Yeah, it's a model 1860 Colt, correct?
Yes, it is. It's the Army model, the 44 caliber model. It was the most widely used revolver of the Civil War and a tremendous success, state-of-the-art at the time.
What is the history behind this particular pistol?
This gun started out as a Union gun.
Okay.
And then somehow it came into the hands of one of the members of Mosby's Rangers.
Mosby's Rangers are an elite Confederate force that operates primarily behind Union lines. Armed only with pistols, they outgun Union soldiers and disrupt logistics by stealing horses and derailing trains. Today, we'd call Mosby's Rangers a Spec-Ops unit. Colonel John Mosby organizes the unit and often takes part in the raids. Perhaps their most famous exploit is capturing Brigadier General Edwin Stoughton. Mosby snatches Stoughton from his own quarters in Union-occupied Virginia. The Union sends thousands of troops to capture Mosby. They never catch him. And Mosby earns the nickname, the Gray Ghost. Well, modern Rangers can actually trace their history back to some degree to Mosby's Rangers. Being a former Ranger myself, I know some of my Ranger buddies are probably a little bit jealous for me to hold a weapon that was part of Mosby's Rangers.
Would you like to shoot it?
I'd be honored to shoot this. Thank you very much. Felt pretty good to fire. There's almost no recoil with this thing. The round went pretty much where I wanted it to go. I took up a more traditional firing position using one hand like they would have back in those days. It's like firing a little piece of history. The development of self-contained metal cartridges and self-loading action during the late 1800s paves the way for the semi-automatic military sidearm. Martin Dougherty has more than 24 books on firearms and military history to his credit. I've asked him to tell me about the first semi-auto pistol to serve on the front lines, Germany's Mauser C96.
The Mauser C96 was a huge leap forward in individual firepower. You could put out a lot of rounds fast, and you could reload it quickly. This is the Mauser Model 1896, sometimes called the broom handle pistol, from the shape of the grip. Germans called it Kuhfuß pistol, or cow's foot pistol.
And what caliber is this in?
Well, originally it was chambered for 7.63 Mauser, but later on, 9mm.
And I notice you also have some dummy rounds there. How would you load this if it was a fixed magazine?
Right, well, what I would do is, first of all, hammer back, open the action, take my stripper clip, place it in the guide, push down hard, seat the rounds, take the stripper clip off, and I'm good to go.
So the C96 Mauser actually put the semi-automatic pistol on the map.
That's right. Until then, most people had never heard of a semi-automatic. But in January 1911, it was involved in a notorious shootout in London.
The incident that rocks London erupts in the city's dingy East End. Hundreds of police corner 2 suspects in a murder-robbery case. The gunman's arsenal includes C96 broom-handled pistols, and their massive firepower keeps police at bay. Britain's Home Secretary, the young Winston Churchill, shows up to supervise. He calls in the Army to reinforce outgunned police. The battle rages for 2 hours. The Mausers only fall silent when fire sweeps through the suspect's hideout. The Sydney Street shootout is a wake-up call for police and military alike. The future will be fought with semi-automatic fire. So did the C96 ever see combat action?
It did indeed. It saw action with the German forces in both World Wars and elsewhere.
You know what else was in use all the way through World War I and World War II? That's the revolver. But by the end of World War II, they were quite refined, like this Webley Mark VI. Now, do you think your semi-automatic pistol has a chance in competition against this advanced revolver?
I'd love to find out.
Both the C96 and the Webley saw action in secret missions during the early 1900s.
At the time when the Mauser was in use, special operations as a concept didn't really exist, but there was a lot of colonial expeditions, diplomatic expeditions were a little bit undercover, and the Mauser was the weapon of choice for a lot of people in that context. The Webley Mark VI was a military sidearm, but of course when the commando forces were formed in the Second World War, it was the initial weapon that they were issued. Now, we've got 12 targets each, and we're going to shoot until one of us gets them all. I'm going old school with the Webley. You've got the broom handle.
Whoever hits their 12 targets first wins. But neither pistol holds 12 rounds, so reloading speed is part of the test. You've only got 6 shots. I've got 10. Are you going to be able to reload that weapon fast enough to keep up with my Mauser?
I like a challenge.
All right, let's do it.
3, 2, 1, engage.
The Webley is accurate and fast, but it's only got 6 shots. While Martin reloads, I can catch up. That's when the Mauser jams.
Double feed. Stand by.
All right. With the Mauser working, I can take out the final targets. That's it, I'm out. Done.
Clear.
All right.
Oh, that was a bit one-sided.
I mean, it's 10-round magazine versus, you know, your 6-round revolver. The load is a little bit easier with the stripper clip. I don't have to load rounds individually, which speeds things up. I did have a couple of malfunctions with this thing, which is a testament to how complicated mechanically it can be, and maybe why it was phased out over time.
The revolver was very reliable, though.
Revolvers are still in use today because they are reliable and effective weapon systems.
Oh, yeah.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate
Thank
that.
you.
It was awesome. Mauser's C96 pistol is just the beginning for semi-automatic firepower. Weapons specialist Mike Tristano is throwing down some lead, with the next stage in the evolution of the Spec-Ops pistol. It's the Pistola Parabellum 08.
Its designer, an Austrian named George Luger, also came up with a custom cartridge to fit this weapon, and that cartridge went on to become the most successful pistol round of all time.
So this is the famous P08 Parabellum. Now, are there any issues with this weapon?
Basically, it was expensive to produce, and it was somewhat vulnerable to mud, sand, and dirt.
And it also uses the 9mm round, which seems to be a round that's used all over the world in military weapons.
Absolutely.
And what's the reason for that?
The 9mm isn't the perfect round for all missions, but it's got enough stopping power. It's cheaper to produce than a lot of the larger caliber cartridges, and you can carry a lot of it. And I think it's a combination of those factors that make it a winner.
The German Army eventually went away from the P08. What did they go to?
Well, then they came out with the Walther P38. But the Nazi officers liked this gun, the Walther PPK.
And this is the pistol that Adolf Hitler committed suicide with.
Correct. But it's also better known to movie audiences worldwide as the sidearm of Agent 007, James Bond.
Oh, yeah, that said, I gotta give it a shot.
Absolutely. Go
All
ahead.
right, let's
do it.
The PPK is compact, so its mag only holds 7 rounds. But the muzzle velocity is fierce for its size. All right, so that's the PPK. Devastating. It's in that compact size. You don't expect that kind of power from something that's so small, but there it is. It's a lot of fun to shoot, and I could own one of these. As an Air Force pararescueman, I became familiar with the firepower of the 1911. Since before World War I until 1985, the M1911 is the standard issue for America's military and special operations units. Gunmakers around the world, including the Soviet Union, have copied it.
Well, the Russians came up with their own 1911 style pistol, the TT-33, which was chambered for their 7.62 by 25 Tokarev round.
How did it hold up?
It's a pretty robust gun, and, you know, it served the Red Army well. It was their main sidearm during the Second World War.
June 1941, Hitler launches a surprise attack on the Soviet Union along an 1,800-mile front. The German advance, codenamed Operation Barbarossa, seems unstoppable. The Tokarev is the sidearm of choice for more than 2,000 teams of Soviet operatives that infiltrate territory occupied by the Germans. Their mission, sabotage and assassination. The teams take out more than 100,000 German soldiers and dozens of high-ranking officers. In addition to destroying munitions. The Tokarev battled the Luger on the Eastern Front. Now these veteran pistols will face off in a test of range and power. Though the rounds they fire can travel many hundreds of feet, they're accurate for just a short distance. We've placed targets on moving platforms to test this effective range. So, Mike, you'll fire the Tokarev, I've got the Luger. When we begin firing, the targets will start moving forward. The chest cavity of each target is loaded with explosive tannerite, so the pistol with the longest range will detonate the target first. 3, 2, 1, fire.
Nice. Nicely done, Will.
In this crude test, the Luger beats the Tokarev. I'm no marksman, but I take out the explosive pack target at 121 feet. Close to the Luger's maximum range of around 160 feet.
I always like the look of burning wreckage, Will.
To many, the Luger's 9mm ammo is the perfect combination of range and stopping power in a compact, affordable package. 100 years after its design, it is still the world's most popular pistol cartridge.
Nice.
We've seen that the Spec-Ops handguns of World War II are precision weapons used by elite fighters. But the U.S. also produced a crude Spec-Ops pistol, designed for anyone daring enough to use it. The Liberator Pistol of 1942. I'm meeting Phil Schreier, Senior Curator of the National Firearms Museum, at their range to test fire one.
All right, what are we looking at here?
This is the famous OSS Liberator.
It actually looks like something that I would see on Buck Rogers.
It's very Buck Rogers. In fact, it was made by the General Motors Electric Guide Lamp Division. So, manufactured by a car company. Someone said, what if we came up with a gun that we could manufacture real cheap and fast and just throw it out the window of airplanes onto the occupied areas of France, of Norway, of Nepal, and they made 1 million of them, delivered them in 6 months. Cost to the government total, all in, $2.25 a piece. You know, there's one photograph of all of World War II of a partisan in the Himalayas with one shoved down the waistband of his pants.
The Liberator has a simple, smooth-bore barrel that limits its effective range. And it only fires one shot, but it's a big round and it has a lot of power. With its limited range of just a few feet, the Liberator can never be a combat sidearm. But if a bold civilian gets close enough to an enemy, it can be traded in for something better. There's no way to gauge the impact of the Liberator. Only one thing is certain. Anyone who used one had nerves of steel.
It's pretty easy. You just pull this back, draw it to the 9 o'clock position, lift up the gate, just line up your sights and aim.
My target is just 20 feet away.
Now, I know I'm a bad shot, but at this range, I definitely should have hit that target.
With any other weapon, that would have been very hard to miss.
Wow. You do have to be right on top of your target in order to engage effectively and accurately with this.
You've got your M11, 1 pound, 13 ounces. P226, 2 pounds, 2 ounces. And then there's this, the Desert Eagle, 4 pounds, 6 ounces, 11 inches in length. The Desert Eagle's made in several calibers and chambers some of the largest pistol ammo on the planet. It fires them at a blistering speed to an extremely long range. According to some, the Desert Eagle is carried by Special Operations Forces. I don't know about that. I just really want to fire this thing. Now, we've set up 3 10-gallon fish tanks. 2 are behind barriers. Now it's time to see exactly what this Desert Eagle can do. All right, so definitely went through all the barriers, took out the tanks. I was a little high on the first round, but you know what? Mission accomplished. It's just a heavy, clunky weapon. And the tendency is to overcompensate by lifting too much to hold up that weight. So I fire high. I definitely would not want this pointed in my general direction. It's a big, heavy, ugly round, and it does some serious damage. The Desert Eagle was designed in the U.S., but most are built in Israel. That may explain the accounts saying Israeli Special Forces are among those who use it. But is that the true story? I've asked former Marine Brady Pasola to help me find out. Right now, he's firing tight groups known as controlled pairs.
Controlled pairs are very important in special forces, being that they're 2 shots to the body, allowing the operator to move on to the next target without having to worry about the guy getting back up.
Nice shooting, brother.
Oh, appreciate it. Thank you.
That's well done. So you're shooting the Glock, right?
Indeed, this is the Glock 26. It's the subcompact version of the Glocks. It's a 9mm, has a 10-round magazine, and a muzzle velocity around 1,200 feet per second.
Now, when we talk about special operations applications, where do we see this used?
We see a lot of different special operations, specifically some Israeli special operations forces and intelligence agencies.
Okay, and its compact design lends itself to a more concealable firearm.
Absolutely. It's very concealable, low profile. Most people won't spot it.
What other kinds of sidearms are they using?
Well, the Glock 17 definitely for more open, upfront operations. It's for when you want to let the enemy know that you have some power, as well as the SIG P228, the little brother of the 226. Good 9mm round to have.
Okay, and I also see the Desert Eagle out here.
Yeah, good old Desert Eagle.
Used in special operations as well.
Well, let's look at real-world situations. Remember the Mavi Marmar incident in 2010?
I do, as a matter of fact, and from what I recall, pistols played a huge role in that. But could the Desert Eagle have been used? In that incident, a flotilla of 6 ships tries to break Israel's blockade of the Gaza Strip. Israeli Spec-Ops teams intercept them, and 5 ships give up peacefully. But the Mavi Marmara turns violent. Israeli commandos rappel down from a chopper. When they land on deck, activists attack them with iron pipes and throw at least one to a lower deck. Eventually, the Israelis fire pistols to defend themselves. By the end of the clash, 7 Israelis are wounded and 9 activists are dead.
We know that the Special Operations Group used 9mm pistols. Some accounts will say it was actually Glocks.
But knowing the IDF, they haven't confirmed or denied anything.
Right.
So the Desert Eagle is still a possibility.
Well, we set up a test to answer that question.
I can't wait to do it. Nice. I see rope. I see a high platform. I'm guessing I'm gonna be rappelling off that thing.
Indeed. Actually, twice, to be specific. The first time with the Desert Eagle, the second time with the Glock. Once you reach the ground, you're gonna go ahead and engage those 3 targets.
Okay, and when I engage these targets, I'm just on the move, or am I stationary?
Shooting and moving, my friend.
All right, well, I guess it's a good thing I'm not scared of heights. Let's do it. We'll time each test run. First, I'll jump off this platform packing a .44 caliber Desert Eagle. This should tell me if a commando could maneuver and acquire targets with such a huge weapon. If this anchor point fails, I'll be relying on this one to grab me. Ready? Go.
How was it?
Interesting. First of all, this thing's long. Second of all, it weighs 4.5 pounds. So I'm really overcompensating, you know, that kind of weight extended at full arm's length. When you're used to something that's a lot lighter, I'm firing high because I'm lifting harder with my hands.
You ready to do it again?
Absolutely.
All right. I'll give you your Glock.
Okay, you got that?
Go
I
have
got
some
this.
fun.
Cool. Rope. Clear.
Well, what'd you think?
Obviously, this is a lot better weapon when we talk about special operations. I had to shed my gloves. I recognized very early I wasn't gonna be able to get my fat finger inside that trigger well with those big gloves on. So that added a little bit of time, but compared to drawing out the Desert Eagle, you know, it's nothing. One of the things I noticed is that I was able to get off a controlled pair with the Glock a lot more quickly than I could have gotten off with the Desert Eagle. And that's because I was fighting the weight of that Desert Eagle, trying to get my sights on target and hold steady at the same time.
So what do you think, Desert Eagle? You think it's a plausible special operations weapon?
No, absolutely not. Though it's too big to go undercover, the Desert Eagle's sheer size and power has made it one of the most recognized pistols of the modern era. I've been testing the best special operations handguns from the last 150 years. And although the guns have changed, they all share one common trait. They're always the most reliable, most accurate, and most lethal pistols of their time. I like the solid feel of Colt's 1860 Army, even though it's primitive by today's standards. The feisty Walther PPK is another favorite. It packs a serious punch in a compact handgun. I'm now convinced that Desert Eagle isn't built for special ops, but it sure is a blast of fire. Spec-Ops pistols vary in caliber, suppressor capability, and other specs. Which is best for the job? Well, in this final test, I have to make that decision based off what I've learned. Firearms expert Mike Tristano has lined up some classic special ops pistols for the test. Now, it's time for my mission briefing.
So, Will, our production team has built this set where you're going to be executing a Spec Ops mission in several phases.
Okay, what's the assignment?
Your mission is to take down a terrorist before he executes a hostage. But first, you have to complete 3 different Spec Ops missions. In each scenario, you'll get intelligence about the target and a choice between 2 weapons. You only have 2 minutes before the hostage is executed. The clock is ticking the whole time. Before we start the timer, let me show you this. This is your target intelligence.
Let's see what we got. I have what looks like some World War I era German soldiers.
That's correct. And you got 2 pistols here. Choose one.
So based on that intel and the weapons I see here, which is the C96 Mauser and the Webley, I'm gonna go with the Webley. I feel like it's more reliable.
It's a good choice.
Okay.
You ready to go?
Mm-hmm.
3, 2, 1, go!
Damn it.
Wait, shooting through glass is always a bit harder, but at least we'll pick the Webley, which was a really good choice for going through that window because of its large .455 caliber round.
The intel photos revealed my next targets, a pair of World War II era German soldiers. I had a choice of a Luger or a Tokarev, and a Tokarev it's a great, hardy weapon, but I was more accurate with the Luger, so I knew that if I loaded up that Luger and took it with me, I'd be able to engage targets effectively and accurately. I didn't expect that guard, and I had to wonder what was behind the door. And anytime you're moving into the unknown, it's always a nice idea to have the element of surprise. Let that smoke billow obscure their line of sight a little bit, distract them a little bit as I come into that room. I
At this point in the mission, Will was going undercover.
Based on the intel, I was going into a cafe and to take out a target in that cafe.
And I gave him a choice between the Walther PPK and the SIG-226.
Now, the Sig Sauer P226 is a great weapon, but I thought it would be a little bulky for what I was trying to engage in. So I grabbed the PPK, loaded up, and I was ready to roll on to the next thing. When I opened up the bag, I noticed that there was a picture of another target, and there was an H&K 45 CT that was suppressed. I went ahead and took it to move on to the next objective. When a civilian is used as a bullet shield, only a certain percentage of your target is exposed, and you have to engage whatever that is. I was feeling good, having a little private celebratory moment in my brain when another target pops up behind me, and that just goes to show that you always have to be on your toes. I took a knee so I'd be a little bit more stable. And stop that threat as well.
Nice job, Will. You made really good time on this mission.
I like it when a target explodes after I shoot it. You really can't argue about that.
How do you feel the whole mission went?
That was a great setup. You know, that first room, 2 targets, knocked those guys down. Day came around the corner, took out that guy who was heading right for me, moved around him, threw a smoke grenade into the next room, 2 targets in there. No problem. The cafe guy, that might have been my favorite guy.
Well, you were kind of James Bonding it there with the Walther PPK.
And it felt kind of sexy like James Bond. And then as I moved up here with the H&K, obviously it's a percentage shot. I put quite a few rounds in that guy. Hostage was untouched. I was really thrilled about that.
Nice job on that.
And then, of course, anytime a target explodes,
it's always fun.
Yeah. The Spec-Ops pistol is a unique breed of weapon. It's got to be rugged, portable, and pack devastating firepower. We've seen how these demanding requirements pushed gun designers to produce the finest pistols on the planet. The Spec-Ops pistol truly is a weapon that can bring you home. I'm Wil Willis, locked and cleared. I'll see you next time on the range.